sport of rock racing, where we rely solely on our machines and our abilities to drive them, there is a constant quest to create something that performs better than the last. Something stronger, faster, and meaner. This is why the Avenger was made.
For several years now, I've been on this quest to find the best combination of design and components and so forth to make one of these rock racers really the best it can be. And also safety has become an important issue to me, even more so now that my daughter Bree will be driving this buggy a lot of the time. So we really put a lot of effort into safety on this rig. Jimmy Penner and I, in the beginning stages, tossed around ideas for this build for about 9 months before we finally landed on a common vision between us for what we wanted this thing to look like, the components, the design, the suspension, and so forth. We ended up we talked about a Ferrari GT prototype because we liked the lines on it, you know, in the sketches and the drawings, but we ended up with the new Corvette. It was about that time the new Corvette was coming out. And we really liked those lines as well, so we ended up gravitating towards that. And we both got the same vision in mind for what we wanted this thing to look like. Thankfully, it came out just almost exactly like we had imagined. So I want to thank Jimmy for that, because it's hard to transfer what you have in mind sometimes to somebody else that's helping you with a build. And in this case, the transfer was fantastic. We happen to live in an area right here in Middle Tennessee that's a hub for rock racing activities. So I'm really blessed to live here where there's so many talented people that can help me with working on these projects. I mentioned Jimmy Penner already, Charlie Swanson, there's Adam Woodley, there's Brian Cole, and the list just goes on. It's fantastic, and we're in such a hot spot for rock racing right here in Middle Tennessee that the possibilities are endless when putting together strategies for building these buggies.
With its emphasis on speed and stunts, anything can happen in this sport, from rollovers to fires to collisions.
As Jimmy and I were finalizing the design and the look of the vehicle, we also were making a component list. So our list of components, we wanted to be very strong, very lightweight, and very durable. So that meant that we wanted our horsepower to be within the range of 500 or 600 horsepower, and we were able to achieve that with an LS3 crate motor with a big cam and a special tune. So we got our horsepower we wanted, and that engine will run that horsepower all day long reliably. Then we went to the transmission, and we used PTC's 400 transmission, special built for our application. We have an Atlas transfer case. We have Dana 60 axle shaft stub axles that we cut and made our drive shafts out of. So we have chromoly Dana 60 axle shafts with special sliders and heat-treated yokes that we're using for our drive shafts. That's pretty exciting, because if you've been in this sport for very long at all, drive shafts are always a problem. We used 1480 U-joints, very large U-joints in the drive shafts, so I'm real happy with that. Then we put our attention to the axles, and we ended up with a 14-bolt aluminum third member from Solid Axle, and we have the housings that are from Diamond Axle, and then we have the knuckles from Essentially Off-Road that Jimmy specifically made for this application, and now he has available for sale. We run the RCV Big Bell 40 spline shafts made out of 300M, so we've just got the best of the best components in these axles. Very excited about that.
I'm here with Craig from RCV Performance Products, who make the foremost axles in the industry. They're perfect for what we do in the rock racing community, and since we want only the best for our Avenger buggy, of course RCV is who we went to for our axles.
RCV Performance is a division of Aircraft Gear, a company that's been around for over 60 years.
Craig, RCV employs a constant velocity component versus a traditional U-joint. Can you explain the differences and benefits there?
Yeah, have you ever been going up a hill and gotten stuck in your back and forth and you feel that curl hop? The RCV CV joint employs a 6 CV track system that eliminates that curl hop, so you're smooth at full turn as well as straight ahead. That eliminates the bind altogether that you get with U-joints, and that's typically where a U-joint will break, where a CV joint is strong the whole way through.
Right, so it's stronger and smoother.
Exactly.
Bonus. Here's another question. What type of materials are the components made out of?
RCV uses domestic quality 300M and 4340 steels in everything they manufacture. We also offer a limited lifetime warranty against breakage. You break it, we replace it. That means one piece here has to become 2 or more pieces.
And how often does that happen?
Well, you know, it does happen. And when it does, I invite you to call us up and we'll take care of it.
All right. Is that what spawned these larger 2 on the end over there?
Yeah, exactly. You know, sometimes applications outgrow what's happening, you know, in the real world, you know, and so we had to get bigger.
That's right. Put it in a rock crawler and we'll put a beating on it.
Exactly.
Craig, what makes these axles perfect for our application with the Avenger buggy?
Well, it brings everything we've just been talking about home, really. These axle shafts, coupled with this CV joint, will give you the strongest axle on the planet.
All right. I need one of those, so.
Great.
Then if you want to look to the wheels and tires, we run Raceline forged 20-inch wheels and 43-inch SX Swamper tires. The suspension on this vehicle was very important to me. I knew that was going to be a key to high performance. And so we used normal Fox coilover shocks in each corner, and we added an additional Fox bypass, triple bypass shock in each corner as well. And that gives us almost infinite shock tuning capability with that triple bypass. And we've already been able to test drive it, very little, but we did get to test drive it, and it's fantastic. Suspension's wonderful. You really want it to be able to do all things well. So when we go to King of the Hammers, for example, if we're going to blast across the desert or climb up a rock hill, we want it to be able to work in both applications. And it's much easier to do that with triple bypasses than it is with just regular coilover shocks.
Hi, my name's Jeff Howe with Howe Performance Power Steering.
Our friend Jeff Howe, owner of Howe Performance, is here today to help us understand the proper setup for their hydraulic steering system. Howe Performance has been in business for 20 years and is really one of the very best at off-road steering, from trophy trucks to razors to buggies, and that's why we wanted them in on this project with us.
Really got my start in off-road racing out in the desert. I'm from San Diego, California. The desert's really in our backyard.
So Jeff, welcome to 4x4 Nation. Thank you for being here. And what can you tell us about this system setup and all these components?
Well, Bree, thanks for having me. First thing we want to pay attention to is the ram. The ram has to stop when the axle stops. This will prevent the ram from overpowering the axle, even becoming maybe a tubing bender.
Okay.
So the next thing we want to pay attention to is the pump. The pump is really what I always say is the guy in charge. We do everything in our power to keep this guy happy. The way we do that is that we use a cooler that has very little restrictions. Has these fins that are machined into it for cooling, but aluminum is a great heat sink. It'll draw the heat right out of the power steering fluid without restricting flow. The next thing is the power steering reservoir. Power steering reservoir, we use a radiator cap actually on here to provide pressure to the oil. We get a little head pressure on the oil, that'll help condense the air that's in the oil.
Gotcha.
See, there's air in oil. You can't get air out of oil, but you can trick it by pressurizing it. The next thing we do is we use a filter, power steering filter. The reason we filter the oil is because the pump makes metal as it wears. That's what turns the oil black. So we want to filter that. And again, that'll allow the pump to last for years. The next thing is hoses. Hoses are the most important. A lot of people use pressure hose and everything. Yeah, that's the pressure hose. We only want pressure where it's pressure.
Okay.
But the push lock style hose is great because it has a larger ID. So that allows flow back to the pump. Again, flow is everything. Feed the pump, make it have more flow than it can produce. That way you don't overheat the pump. So hoses are really a part of the system that everybody overlooks.
Gotcha. Important for keeping that pump happy, right?
That's right, keeping the pump happy. And again, it'll allow you to have steering that won't quit, won't fade, and endless trail rides for years to come.
That's what I like to hear.
Grew up going to Baja. As a young kid, I'd witnessed my first off-road race at the age of 12, and ever since then I was hooked. Desert racing has really been my passion, so I've developed power steering to help conquer Baja. Can't wait to ride in that thing with you.
You're going to have to come back and take a test drive after we get all this together.
And I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Off-road racing has really evolved into more than just desert racing. The rock crawling, really four-wheeling went rock crawling, and when that happened, and that whole industry exploded. Going to the King of the Hammers has allowed me to bring more of our desert racing power steering to the industry.
Chad Molitor's longtime experience with off-road driving, his pursuit of mechanical perfection, and his desire to build a vehicle that would keep his daughter, myself, safe while racing, led to the conception of what is now known as the Avenger buggy. With a collaboration between Chad, Jimmy Penner and his crew at Essentially Off-Road, and Charlie Swanson at Charlie's Custom Creations, the Avenger idea finally became reality.
On this Avenger build, we enlisted the help of some friends. Jimmy Penner from Essentially Off-Road helped us with the chassis design, the suspension, heavy fabrication, and so forth. And then Charlie's Custom Creations, owned by Charlie Swanson, did the finish work, the wiring, the hoses, plumbing you might call it, and much of the brackets and other fabrication that had to take place to finish the product. Both of them have a real niche in their specific area that we use them for. Jimmy has a lot of experience in building chassis and suspension systems and tuning the suspension and so forth, and he had a great eye for the finished look and result that I wanted. And we seemed to come together on that and have the same vision in mind. Then Charlie has a niche that he's really good at as well, where he could come in and do the finish work, and he's really careful about the details, and he did a fantastic job.
Hey guys, I'm Bree here with Jimmy Penner from Essentially Off-Road and Charlie Swanson from Charlie's Custom Creations. They've been collaborating on the new Avenger build, and today they're going to share with us a little bit about what that has looked like for them. So Jimmy, do you want to start us off?
Thanks, Bree. My crew and I at Essentially Off-Road took the Avenger from concept to full rolling chassis, like you see here. At my facility, we do pretty much everything from 4x4 maintenance to full turnkey builds to just general razor stuff even. However, on this particular build, we're handing the keys over to Charlie.
Thanks, Jimmy. 4x4 Nation brought us a full rolling chassis from Essentially Off-Road. We're going to take it where they left off. We'll build the fuel system, do the fuel cell, all the wiring components. We're dropping an LS3 in here, doing a full stainless steel 2.5-inch manual bent exhaust. We'll take everything from where it is a mock-up, send it off to powder coat. Once we get it back from powder coat, we'll take it to a full turnkey build so they're ready to hit the trails and do some racing.
I'm here with Blaine Burnett from Holley Performance, which has been a primary player in fuel delivery systems and other automotive aftermarket parts for several decades. And since we're going all out on the Avenger build, it had to be Holley for the engine management systems. Blaine, can you explain to us what all this is and how it works?
Sure. Bree, thanks for having me on 4x4 Nation today. We're happy to be a part of the project, and I've brought several of the products down that we'll be using on the project Avenger that we have here behind us. So first of all, we're going to be using the HP EFI system on this particular build, and that's going to take care of all of the engine management controls that will be necessary on this here project. So we have here the main power harness that sends power directly from the battery to the ECU, and then we have our other main harness here, which integrates with the factory sensors that are installed already on the LS engine that you all are using. So it's plug and play in that regard, and it adapts right to 24X or 58X engines from the LS variation.
So is this Dominator then the bigger, badder version of the HP unit?
That's a great way of looking at it. The Dominator picks up where the HP leaves off in terms of its capabilities. It's got the same self-learning abilities. Where it picks up at, though, is it can do drive-by-wire control, it can also do electronic trans control, and it can also have 2 banks of wideband monitoring. So you can have one O2 sensor monitoring each bank of an 8-cylinder motor. It can also control a number of other inputs and outputs greater than where this one leaves off at. This one is limited to 4 inputs and 4 outputs. This one has a host of other ones available to it should you need them to operate other functions of the engine.
Okay. So obviously there are a lot of other EFI systems out there. What separates Holley's system from the rest of the pack, so to speak?
Another great question. The HP, actually all of our systems are self-learning to a degree, meaning that there will be a whole lot less dyno tuning time that you would have to pay for when it comes down to it with other systems in the market. So when you install one of our systems, get it installed appropriately, you'll basically look for a base map on our software that pertains to what you've put together for an engine application. And then you will start the car and let it idle. You'll also tell the engine what air-fuel ratio that it needs to have. Obviously that will vary from boosted motors to high compression, naturally aspirated motors to OEM type stuff. So at that point you just drive the car and let it tune itself for what it likes, what that engine likes, because no two engines are the same. In addition to that, you guys are using several of our other fuel system products, including our Dominator billet inline pump here, which is basically a twin pump design. And you can wire that to run off a single pump, or you can wire it to run on a switch if you want to run both of them at the same time, or you can stage it to come in progressively. as well. So in addition to that, obviously you have to keep your fuel system clean, so you run a pre and a post filter in your system in line as well. You want to be able to monitor what's going on with your engine at all times, and Holley has gone to great lengths to provide different solutions for that. You guys are going to be using some of our individual gauges here, which are programmable to show a variation of different readouts. You can also use something that I don't have here with me today, which is a 5.7-inch touchscreen, which displays all of those readouts at one time.
How does this system suit what we're doing here, this application with our project? What makes it perfect for the Avenger build?
Well, you guys are doing something obviously with off-road, and you guys are also using an LS engine, which is what we developed these kits for when we came out with them. So we have LS-specific kits, whether you have a 24X crank trigger or a 58X crank trigger Gen 4 engine. We have kits that are specific to those and can operate them just like an OEM situation, from the harnesses to getting everything running well on the engine.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much. I can't wait to get it all in there, and you'll have to come back for a test drive.
Oh, definitely. I got to drive this thing.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Essentially Off-Road has been featured on Extreme 4x4 on Spike TV. This is our shop right here in Murfreesboro. Come let us get your truck or 4x4 ready for the season. We do repair and maintenance on any 4x4. Plus, we carry and install all major lift kits, custom rear ends, roll cages, and accessories. Call us at 893-8814 or visit essentiallyoffroad.com. Trucks and 4x4s are all we do, so bring yours to the experts.
Safety for the driver and passenger were a top priority in designing the Avenger, with the cage of the vehicle surrounding them more completely than in most buggies. One's head and body are fully protected inside the vehicle with special helmet padding, deep seats, and 5-point harness systems. Thicker than average tubing was used in critical safety areas, and 2 high-quality fire extinguishers are on board. Accidents can still happen, of course, but we can rest easy knowing that the Avenger was made for protection. Well, that and looking fierce while tearing up a hill.
You'll notice this vehicle is low profile, the low center of gravity, the roof is low, and the window openings to get in and out of the vehicle are smaller. And we did this on purpose. It's a little harder to get in and out, but it's worth it for the amount of safety that you gain. And if the vehicle were to be upside down, say we roll it over and we need to get out of it while it's upside down, you can get out either side, or you can get out through the windshield openings. So there are multiple ways to exit the vehicle if things turn upside down. People ask us about the colors on this Avenger build and how we ended up choosing this candy apple red and this candy blue and the silver and so forth. And really, it took quite a while for me to land on these colors. I wanted it to be right. We took a little bit of a chance because it's a bit blingy, but it was a combination of Bree and my wife Shelley are really good at colors. I'm not so good at colors. But they said, yeah, this will work, that won't work, and we narrowed it down. And then Richie Keith is really the one that put me over the top. And he said, there's lots of blue buggies, lots of red buggies. He said, you gotta pop, kind of like the John Deere buggy pops. So he kind of talked me into going a little more extreme than I otherwise would have. And I'm so glad he did, because the colors turned out fantastic. Just wonderful.
At Warn, this is our office. Stuck, all you'll see is red. Warn red. Warn winches are built to get you home, no matter what. Check out the new lineup of Warn winches today.
Of course, as with any project, there are some hurdles to get over along the way. And there were plenty of them in this project, but we were able to achieve the results that we wanted. Some of the setbacks we had were about timing, about waiting for components or waiting for someone to finish their part of the process so that we could continue with the rest of the journey, so to speak. There were lots of hours put into the design in the beginning, and then we actually dug in and started bending tubing. Jimmy did that part within about 4 days. He and his guys actually got very little sleep for 4 days straight, and they built the whole chassis in 4 days. Probably the fastest. I don't know if any chassis has been built that fast before or not, but kind of made that part of the goal, was to knock it out. So that was interesting. And then after that, it was the process of putting things together, getting everything in working order, and then pulling it all back apart, taking it to powder coat, having it powder coated, bring it back in and reassemble everything. And then we had to work the bugs out. So the last 10 days or so, we've been working the bugs out. The last 5 days, I've had it by myself in my own shop, and I've been working all day long, late nights, trying to get it ready for this King of the Hammers trip that we're going on in just a few days.
And only have to push them that far, ideally.
And like, if you're on an obstacle and you're not, attacking it, and say you're trying to just crest that rock, you can give it, half brake, whereas sometimes the manuals are all or nothing. It's, everything you got just to hold it there.
Yeah.
Did we put 410 gears in there?
No, they're 488, I believe. Or 456.
I thought we planned on 410s.
I think they're 456.
Because you don't even really need first gear. Yeah, I wish we'd put the 410s in.
Is it we're 3.8 Atlas, right?
No, 3.0.
3.0.
3.0.
That's pretty powerful then to pull like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first gear is probably won't use it much.
Crawling.
It'd be nice to have though.
So we're going to King of the Hammers on Sunday. We fly out, but today we sent the buggy ahead of us with none other than Brandon Dillon, our good buddy, who we trust. He's taking it all the way out there, he and his family. They had room on their trailer, so.
Fortunately for us, so that we didn't have to drive 30-some hours.
Yeah, they're hooking us up.
Yep.
For those of you who don't know who Andy Unger is, he is a gentleman who is president of Turbo Media, and he's going to be with us for the week out in King of the Hammers, or part of the week anyway, staying in our RV and watching the race, learning about the culture out there. And so we're excited about that because his company broadcasts our episodes in China. They translate it into Chinese and they put subtitles at the bottom of the episodes. So it's really well received over there, and we're excited about what Andy's doing for 4x4 Nation.
Yeah, and Andy came out to a Southern Rock Racing Series race last summer as his introduction to the rock bouncing world, and we put him in with Richie Keith for his first ride, and less than 3 minutes into the race, Richie had rolled over more than once, I'm pretty sure, and Andy loved it and was a great sport. So I guess now we're just taking him to the other side of the country to experience a different side of the off-road racing world along with us.
So our good friend Richie Keith is going to be actually in the main race at King of the Hammers. He's the only Southern rock bouncer in the race this year, and we're so excited here in the Southeast to have him representing us, and he's just the perfect guy for it because he's humble about it, yet he's got a real vision for it and a real, you might say, the eye of the tiger. He wants this thing. He wants to win. He wants to complete the course, and he's just pumped up about it. He's got Joe Lawson working with him, Jimmy Penner and his crew doing the pit area, and Bobby Tanner is going to drive part of the time as well. So what a combination. It's going to be incredible, don't you think?
We're here to check it off. When we got the ticket to come here, that was the first part, was getting a spot to qualify, getting the old Willy Wonka ticket. Then reality set in. It was like, oh my goodness, we're going to have to turn a hill killer into a desert racer. So Mr. Teeth spent a little money and put some triple bypasses on. We upgraded the axles. We changed out the transmission because in the South we use a Power Glide 2-speed. We needed a Turbo 400 for the high-speed desert and so forth. Re-geared the front and rear ends, and put a nice shine of powder coat on there. And the most important thing is chrome. You got to have chrome to roll through the desert.
Well, they're going to have to change their driving style, both Bobby and Richie especially, and maybe Joe a little bit too, because they're used to trying to keep the buggy together for 3 or 4 minutes, or really 1 or 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Up a steep
Long
hill,
enough to climb
full
a hill.
throttle. And in this case, they have to keep it together for about 8 to 10 hours.
And I know I'm excited for the shootout, the backdoor shootout. Just I missed the last East versus West competition, and there's been a lot of smack talk going on. So I'm just excited to see who shows up and just how the buggies perform, how the Avenger performs. It'll be our first time, you know, really testing it in a race or anything.
Really, the beginning of a build like this starts about the time I'm finishing the last build. So, for example, now that we're just in the final stage of finishing the Avenger here, I find that my mind is just brewing with ideas about the next buggy and how we're going to make it even better than this one. So that's how it generally works for me, is I'll be thinking about how to make this the best possible setup we can, and by the time we're finished with it, I've already come up with some other ideas for the next one. So really the whole process is kind of evolving as we move forward.